As the world grows still, a gentle story from the Bible begins to unfold, leading us into a quiet garden in ancient Babylon where truth is tested and faith is quietly revealed. This peaceful Bible sleep story of Susanna and the elders invites you to listen as hidden lies are uncovered, courage remains steady, and God's justice arrives in the calmest way. Stay with this soothing biblical story until the very end, where truth shines softly and peace is fully restored. Long ago, during the days when many of God's people lived far from their homeland, there was a woman named Susanna who dwelt in the city of Babylon. She lived in a time of exile, when the people of Judah had been carried away from Jerusalem and were learning how to live faithfully in a foreign land. Even there, far from the hills and courts of Israel, Susanna's life remained steady, gentle, and deeply rooted in her love for God. Susanna was the daughter of Hilkiah, a man who had taught her from childhood to walk according to the law of Moses. From her earliest days, she learned to listen more than she spoke, to act with kindness, and to hold the commandments of God quietly in her heart. These teachings shaped her thoughts and her choices, becoming the calm center of her life. Those who knew her saw not only her outward beauty, but also the peace that seemed to rest upon her spirit. She was married to Joachim, a wealthy and respected man among the people. His house stood as a place of order and dignity, known throughout the community. Elders and judges often gathered there to speak of matters concerning the people, for Joachim was trusted and honored. Yet despite the importance of his position, the household was not filled with noise or unrest. It moved with a gentle rhythm, guided by care, discipline, and quiet respect. Each day in Susanna's life followed a peaceful pattern. She rose with the soft light of morning, when the city was still calm and the sounds of the day had not yet grown loud. Her steps were unhurried as she attended to her household duties, overseeing servants with patience and fairness. Her words were measured and kind, and her presence brought a sense of ease to those around her. There was no haste in her movements, no sharpness in her tone, only a steady calm that reflected her inner trust. Though Babylon was filled with customs and beliefs different from those she had been taught, Susanna remained faithful in her heart. She did not forget the God of Israel, nor did she allow the distance from Jerusalem to weaken her devotion. In quiet moments, she turned her thoughts toward prayer, lifting her heart to God without display or pretense. Her faith was not loud, but it was firm, woven gently into every part of her daily life. Within Joachim's home there was a private garden, enclosed and carefully kept. It was a place of shade and stillness, where the air felt cooler and time seemed to move more slowly. Trees grew there, offering shelter from the heat of the day, and the sound of water brought a soft sense of calm. This garden became a place of quiet reflection for Susanna, a space where she could breathe deeply and feel the presence of God in the silence. The people who observed Susanna's life saw nothing disorderly or reckless in her ways. She was known for her modesty, her faithfulness to her husband, and her respect for the law. She did not seek attention, nor did she desire praise. Her beauty was evident, yet it was her character that left the deepest impression. There was a sense that her life was carefully balanced, guided by wisdom rather than impulse. In a world that often felt uncertain, Susanna's household stood as a place of calm. Meals were taken with gratitude, conversations were carried out with restraint, and the passing hours felt measured and secure. Even as judges and elders came and went, bringing with them the concerns of the people, Susanna remained steady, her heart anchored in something greater than public opinion or human approval. She trusted that God saw all things, even those unseen by others. This trust gave her peace, allowing her to walk through each day without fear. She did not imagine that her quiet life would soon be tested, nor did she sense how quickly calm routines could be disrupted. For now, her days unfolded gently, marked by faith, order, and a deep assurance that righteousness, though often quiet, was never forgotten by God. And so Susanna continued in her faithful life in Babylon, moving through her days with grace and devotion, unaware that the stillness surrounding her would soon give way to a moment that would reveal the true weight of integrity, courage, and trust in the justice of God. Joachim's house stood with quiet dignity among the homes of the people, neither boastful nor hidden, but settled firmly as a place of respect and calm. Its walls held the warmth of many seasons, and its rooms were arranged with care, allowing light and air to move freely throughout. There was a sense of order within its spaces, as though every stone and beam had been placed with thoughtful intention. The house did not rush those who entered it. Instead, it seemed to invite stillness, offering rest to the body and ease to the mind. Within the outer walls lay the enclosed garden, a place set apart from the sounds of the city. Tall trees grew there, their branches stretching gently overhead, filtering the sunlight into soft patterns upon the ground. Leaves stirred quietly when the breeze passed through, creating a low and steady whisper that carried through the air. The garden was carefully tended, yet it did not feel forced or rigid. Nature moved at its own pace, and the space allowed it to do so. A stream of clear water flowed through the garden, guided along smooth channels of stone. Its movement was unhurried, its sound gentle and continuous, like a quiet breath that never ceased. The water reflected the sky above and the greenery around it, shifting slowly as the day passed. At times, the surface lay almost still, disturbed only by the faint ripple of a leaf touching its edge. This water brought coolness to the garden, especially in the warmer hours, and its presence added to the feeling of peace that rested there. Paths wound softly between the trees, worn smooth by careful steps taken day after day. These paths did not lead in haste, but curved naturally, encouraging those who walked them to slow their pace. Stone benches were placed in shaded areas, offering places to sit and rest, to pause in thought or prayer. Nothing in the garden demanded attention. Everything existed in harmony, allowing the mind to settle without effort. Beyond the garden walls, the life of the household followed a gentle rhythm. Servants moved quietly about their tasks, their voices low and respectful. Doors opened and closed without noise, and footsteps echoed softly through shaded corridors. Even when guests arrived, bringing matters of judgment and counsel, the calm of the house remained. Discussions took place with measured words, and pauses were allowed, giving space for reflection rather than haste. The garden often stood at the center of daily life, a place where the passing hours could be felt without being counted. Morning light would enter first through the leaves, touching the water and warming the stone paths. As the day grew brighter, the shade beneath the trees deepened, offering relief from the sun. In the afternoon, the air became still and quiet, the sounds of the city fading into the distance. By evening, the garden rested in a soft hush, ready to receive the cooler air of night. Those who entered this enclosed space often felt a sense of calm settle over them. It was not only the beauty of the place, but the feeling that here nothing needed to be hurried. Time seemed to stretch gently, allowing thoughts to slow and worries to loosen their hold. The garden was a reflection of the household itself, ordered yet gentle, structured yet peaceful. From this place, Susanna would often pass through the day, her presence blending naturally with the calm around her. The garden did not distract her, nor did it demand her attention. It simply existed alongside her life, offering quiet companionship. The flowing water, the steady shade, and the open sky above all seemed to mirror the steady trust she carried within her heart. As days continued, the house and garden remained unchanged in their gentle order. Elders would come to Joachim's home to sit and speak of matters concerning the people, for it was known as a place where judgment was given and disputes were heard. Even then, the garden held its silence, as though listening without comment, allowing events to unfold without disturbance. The enclosed walls protected this quiet space from the noise beyond, keeping its peace intact. Inside, life moved slowly and deliberately, shaped by routine and care. The sound of water continued its soft song, the trees continued their patient growth, and the garden remained a place of rest, unaware that within its stillness unseen thoughts would soon begin to stir. Among those who regularly came to Joachim's house were 2 elders of the people, men appointed as judges and held in esteem throughout the community. They were advanced in years and carried themselves with the confidence of long-standing authority. Their words were listened to in public gatherings, and their presence commanded respect. When they spoke, others grew silent, trusting that wisdom had been formed through age and position. These elders were entrusted with matters of judgment, called upon to weigh disputes and guide decisions according to the law. Many believed them to be upright, for their appearance reflected discipline and restraint. Their garments were proper, their speech measured, and their conduct in public followed the expectations placed upon men of such responsibility. To most, they seemed to embody stability and order in a time when clear guidance was valued. They spent many hours within Joachim's house, seated among others who came seeking counsel. The shaded spaces and quiet rooms suited them, offering comfort as they discussed affairs of the people. Their familiarity with the household grew over time, as did their freedom to move within its grounds. No one questioned their presence, for it seemed natural that judges should gather where justice was often addressed. In the eyes of the community, these elders stood as pillars of tradition. Their judgments were accepted, their authority rarely challenged. Younger men observed them with a sense of distance and respect, believing that such positions were earned only through integrity and careful living. Even when they walked through the city streets, people made way for them, acknowledging their role with lowered voices and attentive expressions. Yet beneath this outward image, their inner thoughts did not reflect the same order that marked their public lives. While their faces remained composed, their hearts had grown unsettled. Over time, their sense of reverence for the law weakened, replaced quietly by thoughts they did not speak aloud. This change did not appear suddenly, nor was it visible to those around them. It took root slowly, hidden behind practiced gestures and familiar words. The contrast between what was seen and what was concealed was sharp, though unnoticed. In public, they spoke of righteousness. In private, Their thoughts wandered away from the discipline they were meant to uphold. Still, no sign of this shift reached the ears of the people. The elders continued to perform their duties, and their reputation remained intact. Their authority allowed them to act without question. When they entered Joachim's home, servants stepped aside. When they took their seats, others deferred. This ease of movement and unquestioned trust gave them a sense of comfort that few challenged. Over time, familiarity softened boundaries that should have remained firm, and the weight of accountability felt lighter within their own minds. As judges, they were meant to guard truth and protect the innocent. Their role required clear sight and steady judgment. Yet their inner vision had grown clouded, though outwardly they appeared unchanged. They spoke of justice while quietly turning away from it within themselves. This hidden division remained unknown to those who listened to their rulings. The community continued to honor them, unaware that something essential had been lost. No warning disturbed the calm of daily life. Their names were spoken with respect, and their decisions carried influence. Even within Joachim's household, their presence was accepted without hesitation, seen as a natural part of the order that governed public life. The quiet garden bore witness to their passing, offering shade and stillness without judgment. Water continued to flow, and leaves continued to stir gently above them. Nothing in the outward setting reflected the change taking place within their hearts. The peace of the surroundings remained untouched, holding both truth and deception within the same tranquil space. And so the elders continued in their role, respected and trusted, their authority firmly established. The contrast between their public standing and their private thoughts lay hidden, resting silently beneath the calm surface of daily routine, waiting for a moment when what was concealed would no longer remain unseen. As the days passed in quiet succession, Susanna often found herself drawn to the enclosed garden during the warmth of the afternoon. When the sun stood high and the air within the house grew still, she would step gently into the shaded paths, allowing the calm of the place to surround her. The garden welcomed her without sound, its familiar stillness offering comfort that required no words. Her steps were slow and unhurried as she moved beneath the trees. Light filtered softly through the leaves above, settling in gentle patterns upon the ground. The air felt cool despite the heat beyond the walls, and the steady murmur of flowing water followed her wherever she walked. Each sound was quiet and measured, as though the garden itself breathed in peace. In these moments, Susanna's thoughts turned inward. She carried no need to speak aloud, for her prayers rose silently from her heart. She reflected on the goodness of God, remembering the teachings she had learned in her youth and the promises that had shaped her faith. Her trust was steady, not born of ease alone, but of a deep conviction that righteousness mattered even when unseen by others. She paused often, resting beneath the shade where the branches formed a gentle shelter. There she would stand quietly, hands folded, her mind calm and attentive. Her prayers were simple and sincere, filled with gratitude for daily provision and a desire to remain faithful in all things. She did not seek answers or signs, only the assurance that walking uprightly before God was enough. The garden responded with silence, yet it was a silence that felt full rather than empty. Water continued its gentle course along the stone channel, reflecting brief flashes of light. Leaves stirred faintly overhead, and the air carried the scent of earth and greenery. Everything moved in harmony, untouched by urgency or concern. Susanna felt safe within this space, protected not only by the garden walls but by the order and care that shaped her life. She trusted that nothing within this calm place could disturb the peace she carried. Her thoughts were clear, her spirit settled. The world beyond the walls seemed distant, softened by the stillness around her. She walked slowly along the familiar paths, aware of each step yet never rushed by time. The warmth of the day wrapped gently around her, balanced by the shade and coolness of the garden air. There was no need to hurry, no task calling her away. For these moments, the quiet itself was enough. In her heart, she held a firm understanding of right and wrong, shaped by the law she had been taught. This understanding guided her actions without struggle. It was not a burden but a source of peace, allowing her to move through life with confidence and calm. Even in solitude, her faith remained active, steady, and sure. The garden seemed to listen as she prayed, though it offered no reply. Its role was not to answer, but to remain constant. The steady flow of water, the unmoving stones, and the patient trees all bore witness to her quiet devotion. Nothing interrupted her thoughts. Nothing demanded her attention. At times she would stop near the water, watching its surface shift gently as it passed. The movement reminded her of the passage of days, each one flowing into the next without haste. She accepted this rhythm willingly, content to live within its bounds. Her presence within the garden was gentle, leaving no mark behind her. She did not disturb the peace of the place, but moved as though she were a part of it. The stillness remained intact as she walked, and when she paused, it deepened. These private moments became a refuge for her, a time when her spirit could rest fully. She did not know that unseen eyes had grown accustomed to the garden's quiet, nor did she sense that her peaceful walks were observed. For now her world remained calm, shaped by trust, prayer, and the unbroken stillness of a place set apart. The garden remained unchanged in its quiet beauty, yet within its stillness there existed a presence unseen. From places shaded and distant, eyes lingered where they did not belong. No sound marked this watching, and no movement disturbed the calm paths or flowing water. The garden continued to offer peace, unaware that its silence was being shared. At times when Susanna walked beneath the trees, she sensed nothing amiss. The air was steady, the light gentle, and the space felt as safe as it always had. Her thoughts remained turned toward prayer and reflection, and her steps followed familiar paths. Nothing in her surroundings gave warning, for the watching remained hidden, careful not to disturb the quiet it relied upon. Those who observed did so without speaking. They remained still, blending into the shade cast by walls and branches. Their presence did not interrupt the rhythm of the garden. Water continued to move along its course, leaves stirred softly, and the light shifted as the sun passed overhead. Everything appeared as it always had, calm and ordered. The watching was not marked by sudden movement or obvious intent. It unfolded slowly, over repeated days, growing out of familiarity rather than urgency. The garden had become a place known to them, its paths learned, its quiet moments anticipated. The stillness that once offered rest now allowed unnoticed attention to remain concealed. Susanna remained unaware, her mind undisturbed by suspicion. She trusted the order of her life and the safety of the enclosed space. Her thoughts did not wander toward concern, for she had never known reason to doubt the peace around her. Her prayers continued, gentle and sincere, rising silently as she stood beneath the trees or walked beside the water. The contrast between her calm presence and the silent watching went unnoticed by all. There was no sign to reveal it, no sound to mark the difference. The garden held both stillness and secrecy at once, without altering its appearance. Even the light that filtered through the leaves fell evenly, revealing nothing beyond what it had always shown. Those who watched allowed themselves to linger longer with each passing day. Their attention did not announce itself. It rested quietly, growing heavier in thought rather than action. Though their outer forms remained still, their inner focus had shifted, no longer aligned with the purpose of their role or the trust placed in them. The garden offered many places where one could remain unseen. Walls cast long shadows in the afternoon, and trees formed natural shelter. From these places, sight could remain clear while presence stayed concealed. The space itself made concealment easy, without changing its nature or disturbing its calm. Susanna continued to move freely, unaware that her solitude was no longer complete. She paused where she always had, prayed as she always had, and walked with the same gentle pace. Nothing in her expression changed, for nothing had yet reached her awareness. Her trust remained unbroken, her spirit untroubled. The quiet tension that had entered the garden did not alter its sounds. Water still murmured softly, and the breeze continued to pass through the leaves with the same gentle motion. The air remained cool and steady. It was as though the garden itself held its breath, not in alarm, but in patience. No words were spoken during these moments of watching. Silence was maintained carefully, preserving the appearance of peace. The absence of sound allowed the watchers to remain unnoticed, and the calm of the place remained intact. Nothing rushed, and nothing revealed itself. Time passed gently within the garden, measured not by clocks, but by shifting light and lengthening shadows. Each visit followed the same pattern, unmarked by interruption. The stillness remained, offering no indication that its peace was being misused. Susanna's prayers continued to rise quietly, carried by trust rather than fear. She remained centered, her thoughts fixed on what was good and right. The presence of unseen eyes did not reach her awareness, and so her calm endured without fracture. Within the same peaceful space, two different inner worlds now existed. One remained steady and faithful, shaped by devotion and trust. The other had begun to drift, guided by thoughts left unspoken and unseen. The garden held both without change, its silence offering shelter to each. And so the watching continued, hidden within the stillness, resting quietly behind the gentle rhythm of daily life, waiting without sound or sign, while the garden remained calm and the peace upon its paths appeared unbroken. In the midst of the garden's quiet, a moment arrived that would ask something of Susanna that could not be postponed or avoided. The stillness that had once surrounded her now felt narrower, though the garden itself had not changed. The paths remained shaded, the water continued its gentle flow, and the air held its calm warmth. Yet within this familiar space she found herself no longer alone. When the time came, the elders stepped forward from their concealment, revealing themselves without haste. Their voices were low and controlled, shaped to sound certain and commanding. They spoke with the authority they carried in public, presenting themselves not as men out of order, but as judges accustomed to being obeyed. Their words were carefully chosen, meant to press inward rather than strike outward. Susanna listened without interruption. She did not step back in panic, nor did she raise her voice. Her posture remained steady, and her expression did not harden. In that moment, she understood clearly what was being placed before her. The choice was spoken plainly, though wrapped in the language of power. To yield would mean safety in the eyes of men. To refuse would invite accusation and judgment before the people. The garden, which had offered her peace, now bore witness to her resolve. She stood within its shade, aware of her vulnerability, yet her spirit did not waver. Her thoughts turned inward, not toward fear, but toward the God she had trusted all her life. She knew that no wall, no authority, and no hidden threat stood outside his sight. Her response came without anger and without pleading. She spoke with clarity, acknowledging the weight of the moment while refusing to abandon what she knew to be right. She did not argue her position with long explanations. Her strength lay not in persuasion, but in conviction. She chose faithfulness, even as she understood the cost it might carry. Within her heart, a prayer formed quietly, steady and sincere. She did not ask for escape from difficulty, but for the strength to remain upright. She placed her life into God's care, trusting that truth did not depend on appearances or the voices of men. This trust settled her spirit, allowing her to stand firm without trembling. The elders, faced with her refusal, allowed their composure to harden. Their authority, once unquestioned, now felt challenged by her calm resolve. They did not raise their voices, yet the tension between them grew heavy. Words that followed were shaped by resentment rather than justice, though they were spoken with practiced control. Susanna did not respond to the shift in their tone. She did not retreat into silence out of fear, nor did she attempt to protect herself through compromise. Her decision had already been made, and she stood by it without regret. The quiet dignity with which she held herself revealed a courage that did not seek recognition. In that moment, she understood that she stood alone in the eyes of those before her. Yet she did not feel abandoned. Her faith provided a steadiness that did not rely on witnesses or approval. She accepted that what followed might unfold beyond her control, but she did not allow this knowledge to disturb her inner peace. The garden remained still around them. The water did not cease its movement, and the leaves did not stop their gentle stirring. Nature continued its quiet order, unaffected by the weight of human choice unfolding within its bounds. This constancy seemed to support her resolve, reminding her that righteousness existed beyond the immediate moment. Susanna's courage was not loud or dramatic. It revealed itself in her refusal to be moved by fear. She did not lash out or speak harshly. She simply remained faithful to what she knew to be true. In doing so, she placed her trust fully in God's justice, believing that no false word could ultimately stand against truth. As the elders turned away to carry out what they had threatened, Susanna remained still. Her heart was steady, though she knew that her life would soon be drawn into public judgment. She did not attempt to follow or stop them. She allowed events to unfold, resting in the knowledge that she had chosen rightly. The quiet of the garden returned fully once more. The moment of confrontation passed, leaving no visible mark upon the paths or the water. Yet within Susanna something had been firmly set. Her faith had been tested in solitude, and she had remained true. She gathered herself calmly, her thoughts once again lifting toward prayer. The vulnerability of her position did not erase her peace. Instead, it clarified it. She entrusted the outcome to God, confident that even when truth was spoken softly, it was never unheard. And so she stood within the same garden that had once offered rest, now carrying the weight of her choice with quiet courage, prepared to face what lay ahead without surrendering the faith that had guided her every step. The calm of the garden soon gave way to the order of public life, where voices carried farther and decisions were shaped before many eyes. The elders went out among the people, their expressions composed, their steps steady, as though nothing within them had shifted. They took their place where judgments were customarily heard, surrounded by those who trusted their authority and respected their age. When they spoke, their words were clear and deliberate. They presented themselves as careful witnesses, men burdened by duty rather than driven by impulse. The account they offered was shaped to sound orderly and convincing, arranged with confidence and detail. Each phrase carried the weight of their position, and the people listened with attention, unprepared to doubt what was being said. Susanna was brought forward before the assembly. She stood quietly, surrounded by faces that reflected surprise and concern. Many who saw her had known her life of order and devotion. The contrast between her calm presence and the accusation spoken against her was striking, yet the elders' voices held influence. Their words filled the space, leaving little room for interruption. They spoke of what they claimed to have seen, describing events with practiced certainty. Their testimony was delivered without haste, as though truth itself guided their speech. They named places and moments, weaving a story that appeared consistent and complete. The structure of their accusation gave it weight, and the confidence with which it was spoken lent it force. The people listened in silence. Some felt confusion stir within them, while others accepted the words without question. The authority of the elders shaped the atmosphere, creating a sense that judgment had already begun to settle. No raised voices followed, no sudden outcry broke the calm. The accusation unfolded steadily, its seriousness resting heavily upon the gathering. Susanna did not interrupt. She did not cry out in protest or plead her innocence loudly. Her stillness stood in contrast to the words spoken against her. Though she stood alone in the midst of the assembly, her composure remained intact. She listened as the false testimony was laid before the people, each word falling where it was meant to land. The elders completed their account with measured finality. They did not embellish their claims beyond what was necessary. Their restraint made their words seem more credible, more fitting for men entrusted with judgment. To many, there was no reason to doubt them. Their reputation supported their speech, and their confidence discouraged challenge. As the accusation settled, a quiet heaviness spread among those present. The weight of what had been spoken pressed inward, not through force, but through expectation. Judgment carried consequences, and the people understood this well. The calm of the proceedings did not lessen the seriousness of the moment. Instead, it deepened it. Susanna remained silent for a time, her eyes lowered, her heart lifted quietly toward God. She knew that the words spoken against her were not true, yet she also understood the power they carried. The setting offered no comfort, no private refuge. Everything was exposed to public sight, and the voices of authority had already spoken. When she raised her eyes, there was no fear in her expression. She did not attempt to match the elders in argument or detail. Her strength lay elsewhere. She trusted that truth did not depend upon volume or position. Though surrounded by false words, her faith remained steady. The people looked on, some with doubt, others with sorrow. Yet the order of the gathering moved forward according to custom. The elders' testimony stood before the assembly, accepted as lawful and sufficient. The calm manner in which it had been delivered made it all the more difficult to question. The air around the assembly felt still, as though waiting. No immediate resolution came, yet the direction of judgment seemed clear. The accusation had been spoken, and it now rested within the shared space, shaping thoughts and expectations. The weight of false testimony lingered, quiet but heavy. Susanna stood at the center of this moment, her dignity unbroken. Though the words spoken against her were untrue, they had been given form and voice. The contrast between her faithful life and the accusation brought against her remained unspoken, yet it hovered beneath the surface of the gathering. The proceedings continued without disruption. The elders' words remained unchallenged, carried forward by the trust placed in them. The calm order of public judgment masked the injustice taking shape within it. And so the accusation stood before the people, spoken calmly and accepted readily, while Susanna remained composed within the quiet weight of false words, her trust resting not in human judgment, but in the justice of God that sees beyond every appearance. As the words of accusation settled into silence, Susanna turned inward, where no voice could interrupt and no false claim could reach. The noise of the gathering faded from her awareness, replaced by a stillness deeper than the quiet of the garden she had known. Her body remained upright and calm, but her heart lifted itself gently toward God. She did not form her prayer with urgency or fear. It rose slowly, shaped by trust rather than desperation. She knew the judgment of people now stood against her, yet she also knew that no verdict spoken by men could reach the full truth of her life. In that knowledge her spirit rested, even as her circumstances grew heavy. Within herself, she acknowledged what lay before her. She understood the danger clearly, and did not turn away from it in denial. Still, she did not allow dread to take root. Instead, she placed her life fully into God's hands, not asking for rescue through force or persuasion, but surrendering herself to divine justice that sees beyond every word and gesture. Her prayer was not spoken aloud. It carried no elaborate language. It was a quiet offering of her innocence, a calm declaration that she had walked faithfully and had not turned aside from what was right. She entrusted the truth of her actions to God alone, believing that He remained near even when human judgment failed. Her breathing slowed as her thoughts settled. The tension around her did not disturb her inner balance. She did not measure her prayer by outcome or timing. She simply remained present before God, confident that He heard even the smallest movement of her heart. This confidence steadied her more than any defense could have done. In this inward stillness, she felt neither anger toward her accusers nor bitterness toward those who believed them. She released both judgment and resentment, allowing no place for them to linger within her. Her surrender was complete, free from conditions or demands. She trusted that truth did not require her control to endure. Her composure remained visible to those around her, though its source remained unseen. There was no trembling in her posture, no agitation in her expression. The quiet strength that held her was born of faith shaped long before this moment, nurtured in daily devotion and steady obedience. She remembered the God who had guided His people through exile and uncertainty, who remained faithful even when circumstances seemed unjust. That remembrance carried her prayer forward without effort. She did not feel abandoned. Instead, she felt held within a justice larger than any gathering or accusation. As she surrendered her future, she also surrendered her fear. What remained was a deep stillness, unshaken by the weight of false testimony. Her trust did not rest on being understood by others, but on being known fully by God. In that knowledge, she found peace that did not depend on the direction of events. Her silent prayer continued, steady and unbroken, as the world around her waited. The gathering remained, the judgment unresolved, yet within Susanna there was calm acceptance. She had placed herself entirely into God's care, confident that no truth offered to Him is ever lost or ignored. And so she stood, outwardly quiet and inwardly surrendered, resting in divine justice with a faith that required no words, holding steady beneath the unseen presence of a God who listens when all else grows silent. As the quiet weight of judgment lingered over the gathering, a voice rose that had not yet been heard. It did not carry the authority of age, nor did it command attention through position or rank. It belonged to Daniel, a young man standing among the people, attentive and alert, his heart stirred by what he had witnessed. Until that moment, he had remained silent, observing the proceedings with careful thought. As the elders spoke and the assembly listened, something within him resisted the calm acceptance settling over the crowd. The order of the judgment felt incomplete to him, not because it lacked form, but because it lacked truth. This awareness did not come as a sudden burst, but as a clear and steady conviction. Daniel's youth set him apart. He was not yet burdened by the habits of authority or the comfort of reputation. His understanding was shaped by reverence for God and a sincere regard for justice. While others deferred to the elders out of long-held respect, Daniel felt compelled to look beyond appearances. His concern was not directed at challenging position, but at honoring what was right. When he spoke, his words did not rush forward. They emerged calmly, shaped by restraint and clarity. He declared that he would not share in the shedding of innocent blood, his voice steady and clear enough to carry across the gathering. The simplicity of his words stood out against the detailed accusation that had preceded them. He did not accuse, nor did he argue. He stated his conviction plainly. The people turned toward him, surprised that such a voice would rise at such a moment. His presence altered the atmosphere, not through force, but through sincerity. The heaviness that had settled over the assembly shifted slightly, as though a window had been opened to let in fresh air. His courage was quiet, yet unmistakable. Daniel did not speak as one who doubted his place. Though young, he was certain of the responsibility he carried in that moment. His concern for justice outweighed his awareness of rank or consequence. He stood not to draw attention to himself, but to give voice to truth that had been overlooked. Those nearby listened closely. His words did not accuse the elders directly, but they challenged the finality of the judgment forming around them. He called for care, for patience, for the matter to be examined fully. The clarity with which he spoke revealed a wisdom that did not depend on years. It reflected discernment shaped by faith and attentiveness. The assembly paused. The flow of judgment slowed, interrupted not by disorder, but by thoughtful restraint. Daniel's calm courage created space for reconsideration. His presence reminded those gathered that justice required more than accepted authority. It required careful listening and honest examination. Susanna remained still as Daniel spoke. She did not turn toward him in hope or expectation. Her trust remained placed in God rather than in any human voice. Yet Daniel's words moved within the gathering, creating a quiet shift that could not be ignored. The silence that followed was no longer heavy with resignation, but open with possibility. Daniel did not press forward aggressively. He allowed his words to rest where they were spoken. His confidence did not seek affirmation. It rested in the knowledge that truth deserved a hearing, regardless of who spoke it. His calm presence stood in contrast to the weight of false certainty that had filled the space before. The elders, accustomed to unquestioned authority, now found themselves faced with an unexpected pause. The certainty of the moment had been interrupted by a voice unshaped by fear. Daniel's youth did not weaken his words. Instead, it underscored their sincerity. In that moment, clarity entered the gathering. Not all answers were revealed, yet the path toward truth began to open. Daniel's courage did not arrive with noise or spectacle. It came as a gentle interruption, steady and respectful, guided by a desire to see justice done rightly. The assembly waited, attentive now in a new way. The presence of this young voice had altered the course of what had seemed settled. Without force or accusation, Daniel had reminded all present that truth remains active, even when silence has grown deep. The pause created by Daniel's words settled gently over the gathering, and from that stillness came a careful change in direction. The young man did not rush to judgment, nor did he raise his voice. Instead, he asked that the elders be questioned separately, allowing each account to stand on its own. This request was granted, and the assembly shifted quietly, attentive to what would follow. One of the elders was led aside, away from the presence of the other. Daniel faced him with calm focus, his manner respectful and composed. He did not accuse or provoke. He asked a simple question, inviting the elder to speak freely, trusting that truth reveals itself when words are allowed to unfold without pressure. The elder responded with confidence, naming the place where he claimed the event had occurred, describing the setting with certainty. Daniel listened without interruption. He observed not only the words spoken, but the manner in which they were delivered. There was no haste in his response. When the elder finished, Daniel acknowledged the answer quietly, allowing it to settle without comment. The elder was then taken away, and the space was prepared for the second. The other elder was brought forward, unaware of what had been said before him. Daniel approached him with the same steady composure. His voice remained even, his posture unchanged. He asked the same question, without alteration or emphasis, creating an atmosphere where truth could stand without guidance or correction. The second elder spoke readily, giving his own account of the place and circumstance. His words flowed with assurance, yet they differed from those spoken earlier. The difference was subtle but clear. The details did not align. What had seemed firm moments before now revealed a quiet inconsistency. Daniel allowed the contrast to emerge on its own. He did not point it out sharply, nor did he speak with triumph. He simply acknowledged what had been said, his attentiveness steady. The truth had begun to uncover itself without force, revealed through patience rather than pressure. The assembly listened closely. Murmurs did not rise, and no sudden reaction broke the calm. Instead, understanding spread slowly, as those present recognized the difference between the two accounts. The quiet rhythm of questioning had done what argument could not. It had allowed clarity to surface naturally. Daniel's role remained measured throughout. He did not claim authority beyond what was needed. His discernment guided the moment, not to display wisdom, but to protect truth. The elder's words now stood apart, no longer unified by shared certainty. The calm order of the proceedings remained intact, yet the weight within it had shifted. What had been accepted without question now appeared fragile. Through careful listening and steady patience, truth had begun to reveal itself, not with noise or confrontation, but with quiet certainty resting in the space between words. As the differing words of the elders settled into the open space between them, understanding began to move quietly through the gathering. No one spoke at once. There was no sudden reaction or raised voice. Instead, a calm awareness spread from one person to another, carried by the clear contrast that could no longer be ignored. What had seemed certain before now appeared fragile, unable to hold its shape. The order of the assembly remained, yet its direction shifted. Faces once fixed with acceptance softened into thought. The confidence placed in authority gave way to careful reflection. The calm method by which the truth had been revealed allowed the realization to arrive gently, without confusion or unrest. It became clear that the accusation could not stand as it had been spoken. Relief moved through the crowd quietly. It did not arrive as celebration, but as release. The heaviness that had pressed upon the gathering began to lift, replaced by clarity that felt steady and grounding. The calm of the moment returned, now shaped by understanding rather than uncertainty. What had been hidden beneath false certainty was now visible. The elders stood exposed not through confrontation, but through their own words. Their authority, once unquestioned, no longer held the same weight. The careful separation of their testimony had undone the appearance of agreement, revealing the absence of truth beneath it. The order of justice, momentarily disturbed, began to restore itself through recognition rather than force. Susanna remained where she stood, her composure unchanged. The truth that had been entrusted quietly to God was now evident before the people. She did not move forward or speak in response. Her stillness reflected the peace that comes when righteousness is brought into the light without struggle. The clarity of the moment required no defense from her. Those who watched felt the shift settle fully. The gathering did not dissolve into noise. Instead, it grew quieter, as though honoring the seriousness of what had been uncovered. The recognition of error carried with it a renewed respect for careful judgment and patient listening. The calm process by which truth emerged reinforced its strength. Justice found its place again, not through dramatic declaration, but through correction. The proper order of things resumed, guided by discernment rather than assumption. The structure of the law, meant to protect the innocent, revealed its purpose once more. What had been misused was now set right. The atmosphere grew balanced, steady, and clear. The weight of false testimony no longer lingered. In its place stood understanding shaped by truth. The gathering remained attentive, grounded in the awareness that justice requires care and humility. Within this restored calm, the moment resolved itself naturally. Truth stood without need for emphasis. Order returned without disruption. The gathering held steady, shaped by clarity and quiet relief, as justice found its rightful place among the people once more. Peace returned to Susanna like a quiet breath after long stillness. Within her heart, the weight that had pressed so heavily began to loosen, replaced by a gentle warmth of relief. She stood in calm awareness, knowing that truth had spoken clearly without force, without haste. The garden that had once felt watched and troubled now seemed open again, filled with familiar light and steady air. Gratitude moved through her slowly, not in sudden joy, but in a deep settled way. She gave thanks in silence, her thoughts resting on the faith that had carried her through uncertainty. Trust in God had not hurried her steps or sharpened her voice. It had asked only for patience, and patience had been enough. In that quiet faith, her spirit found rest. Around her, the world softened. Faces no longer held confusion or doubt, but a peaceful understanding. Order had returned, not through anger or noise, but through careful listening and steady wisdom. Susanna felt no need to look back on fear. The truth had lifted it away like mist leaving the ground when morning light appears. Her body relaxed, her breath slow and even. The strain she had carried slipped away, leaving clarity in its place. She felt seen, not by the crowd, but by the one who knew her heart fully. That knowledge wrapped around her like a gentle garment, offering comfort without words. The garden seemed to welcome her again. Leaves stirred softly, and shadows lay calmly on the stone paths. The place that had witnessed accusation now held peace, as though it too had been waiting for balance to return. Susanna allowed herself to remain still, letting calm settle deeper with each quiet moment. There was no triumph in her thoughts, only humility and thankfulness. Justice had restored harmony, and harmony brought rest. Her heart moved toward forgiveness, light and unforced, carried by the calm that followed truth. Nothing needed to be spoken. Nothing needed to be proven again. Evening drew near in spirit, gentle and unhurried. The noise of the day faded, replaced by reassurance and steady peace. Susanna remained rooted in that calm, her faith unshaken, her spirit at ease, held in the quiet assurance that truth, once revealed, brings lasting rest. In that settled silence, her heart rested securely, aware that righteousness brings gentle safety, and that peace lingers when honesty is allowed to stand firmly. From this quiet place of restored calm, a gentle truth remains. Integrity does not need to raise its voice. Faith does not rush or demand. Truth carries its own steady strength, moving softly and patiently until it is seen clearly. In stillness it finds room to breathe, and in honesty it brings peace that does not fade. There is comfort in knowing that what is right does not depend on noise or fear. It rests securely, waiting to be trusted. When the heart chooses what is true, even in silence, order returns in a natural way. Calm follows clarity, and the spirit settles into a deeper rest. Let the day loosen its hold now. Thoughts can slow and soften, like light dimming gently in a quiet room. The body may rest, supported by the reassurance that truth watches over what is good. Nothing more needs to be carried. Nothing more needs to be resolved in this moment. Allow peace to settle where tension once lingered. Let gratitude remain, warm and steady. Integrity brings a quiet confidence, and faith offers gentle shelter. In that calm space, rest comes easily. If this peaceful story has brought comfort, it may be shared with others who seek the same quiet reassurance. A small sign of support, a kind comment, or a simple subscription helps these gentle readings continue. Wherever rest finds you now, may calm surround you, and may the night hold you in steady peace, allowing sleep to arrive softly and remain unbroken.